Hello, and welcome to the CFA Society San Francisco podcast, where we interview and discuss current topics with leading members of the Bay Area investment community. This week, Tanya Subatang, Senior Membership Manager with CFA Society San Francisco, sits down with Yanrong Chen, Business Analyst with EasyAUM Inc. Listen in as they discuss mid-career industry changes, her experience taking the CFA exam, and how the CFA program helped her transition into the finance industry.
Hello, Yanrong. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Tanya. And it's great to meet you.
Yes, it's such a great pleasure of mine to meet you as well. And I know you and I kind of been talking via email, and we had a brief encounter in some past society events, but I'm very excited to finally get the opportunity to interview you.
Right. Thank you very much for having me. It's also an exciting opportunity for me to share my experience and stories. Then maybe some other candidates or fellows have similar struggles or similar situations. Then I'll be happy to share my story. Yeah.
And that's exactly why I am so thrilled to have you on our upcoming episode, is because we are in our third season of the podcast, and you are actually the first candidate member of ours to
my honor.
Yeah, to do our podcast. And I think, you know, it kind of is, you're a great person to feature because you really have an amazing journey, professionally speaking. And, it goes to show you at any point in your life, in your age, in your career, you can definitely make a career transition. So for listeners, you're probably wondering, well, what makes Yanrong so special is that for a very long time, I actually don't want to say how many years because we don't need to have you dated, but for quite some time, you had a very successful career in education. You were a lecturer at KU Leuven. Did I say that right?
Yes, correct.
And
in Belgium.
A very prestigious school in Belgium. I think it's one of the oldest.
It is.
And you taught, your lectures would focus on Eastern Asia and Catholicism. So
correct.
Far from finance and investment.
Very far.
What made you decide to switch into the finance industry?
Well, I think there more than one motivation behind the switch. And also perhaps we need to put each one of them into its own context, and the situations for personally or professionally, they always keep evolving. So nothing was settled down. That was true for me, and nothing is settled down even now. But if we look back and if I pick one, that is my relocation to the States from Belgium to the Bay Area. And this relocation pushed me to have a fresh eye to look at the world around me. So I think if I need to sum it up, that is a strong desire that I want to understand the world around me, near me, better, but in which way? I relocated here after my lectureship at KU Leuven. Then there were two things going on at the same time. One is to, of course, naturally, you want to continue your old career. That was not called old career. Now I call it old. You want to continue what you were doing, right? Mm-hmm. So at that moment, I finished my PhD, and I also finished 2 years of teaching there. So when I relocated, I was preparing a manuscript based on the dissertation, and I was doing academic job searching. And I was busy going to interviews, and also sometimes I also got to campus interviews. That is the last round, and then also preparing publications and working on new projects. Those were all academic track. Mm-hmm. So that was one thing going on, what I was supposed to do, which went on sometimes fine. Of course, sometimes you have rough bumps, right? And on the other hand, I got some, maybe it sounds silly right now then, because I had to think about, where am I? Who am I? Why? Because the real things around me were not about 17th century literature or East Asian religions.
Right.
What surrounded me were IPOs, stock plans, pension funds, loan to value ratio, something. Because some background that my husband is a software engineer, and he's the reason that the whole family needs to relocate here. And also he works at an EV company. And all those things were around me, and we were also preparing to buy the house, the first home here. Those things to me were as strange and new, or really, I know it sounds silly, but if you can imagine, for a person who's been in the ivory tower for almost her life, and then always about literature, philosophy, even theology, history, nothing about money. Right. And I never thought about money. So I was kind of naive, but that hit me. So I was thinking, I've been trying to understand the world, the history from one approach. And now I am I'm financially illiterate, right? And I do think financial literacy is essential to everyone in today's world, and also especially for people in the States or here. Then I really want to catch up. I was already at this moment. I have two things, unrelated, separate things going on. I'm trying to figure out what, and meanwhile trying to continue with the academic part. Then the pandemic hit. I think that pandemic was kind of a shock, but also some kind of enlightenment moment to some people in a way, if you put it in a positive way. Everything was shut down, and there was also a chance to contemplate things that you haven't got to, right? I remember very clearly that was May, because during the shutdown already for several months, then I was also in shock together with everyone. Then suddenly you realize several months already has gone, right? And all the confusion and the chaos. And that was already May. I realized since the very beginning, several cases popped up in the States. I had done nothing. I completed nothing new, and life stopped. Time stopped. Yeah. And meanwhile, my academic projects were all completed. My book was published, and a translation was done as well. And some interviews, were paused because of the pandemic. Right. Then that was a moment I decided to take real action to help myself. As I said, I was confused. I found myself financial illiterate. Then that was a moment I decided to take real action by registering. I registered for the CFA exam. I think that is the moment. If we draw a clear line of what's past and what's now, and what's this shift happened, then that was the moment I think I signed up for the CFA exam, or the CFA program. Then that is it. And
wow.
This is where I am now.
I love that. I think I've done a couple of podcast interviews where, many people have admitted that the pandemic, although it was still, probably one of the most stressful and definitely uncomfortable for everybody.
Definitely, yes.
It absolutely helped a lot of people reinvent themselves. And clearly you're one of them. You're a published author, and you have your PhD in education and theology, completely different from where you're going now.
Right.
I'm curious as to, there's so many other type of designation out there. Why did you choose the CFA designation to pursue? And it's not one of the easiest from my understanding.
Indeed. It is maybe one of the hardest. And this is also, one of the reasons I choose it. I think that this is a great question, and I think you can find all different answers online. Why choose the CFA designation? But everyone has their own reason or tip or stories, right? In my version, I never heard of CFA at all, the CFA designation, because no one around me was related to any roles in the finance before. Then just at the moment that I decided to take real action, I said to myself, okay, you're financially illiterate. You want to learn finance. What's the way to do it? What's the best way? I think that was the question. It pushed me to Google. So I Googled, what's the way? Then I found they are, of course, there are many designations, certificates, and some people also suggest that you should do a master program or this or that. Then I compared some of them, and then that was not a hard decision, actually quite easy for me. I chose CFA designation without any doubt. If I may try to articulate my thoughts back then, I think the first is the breadth of contents that the CFA program covers. It provides a wide range of topics, all covered. So back then, of course, I didn't know that clearly as I do now. But from the information that I gathered, the topics tested are quite wide, and from even quant, touched a bit on quant statistics, and also management and investment, equity and fixed income, this and that. So I like the breadth, and also I like it's difficult but manageable, and it allows us chances for success in a relatively short period. Of course, there are 3 levels, and you need to take one by one. And but I like this flexibility. You can pace yourself, right? And in my case, I want to do it in a short period of time. In comparing with a 4-year college degree in finance or economics, I think this one is ideal for me. And also it allows your own style of learning. So I think I can move faster on my own. And it is notoriously difficult. So I don't doubt the depth of the knowledge after you get it, right? And that's the flexibility that I like very much. So also it doesn't require credit for if you do even a CPA. That requires accounting. Actually, I also I enrolled in some courses in accounting, or financial accounting skills is essential to any fundamental analysts. But I like this flexibility, meaning you don't need that credit before you register for the course, and you can gradually pick it up along the way. And the professional related professional experience you can still gain when you're taking the exam or after you pass the level 3 exam. So which is what I'm doing right now. I really like. Yes. I think this feasibility and flexibility are only CFA designation. The design of this program provides really great, and I appreciate this kind of opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say is that you're actually working in the field now. I mean,
yes,
you passed your 1 and 2, and you're about to take your level 3 exam in February. And
yes,
you're already working in the industry. So obviously,
exactly,
your knowledge base has expanded just by taking these 2 exams. So that's quite amazing.
Exactly. So I appreciate the opportunity of both in taking the exam and also where I'm working now. So I can also implement the knowledge that was acquired from studying CFA. Meanwhile, the passing CFA level 2, I think it actually helped me get this job. Then because of the difficulty and all the requirement that CFA exams require, so people in the field know if you can pass level 1 or level 2 or level 3, what does that mean? So I think that helped me to clear the way when I was doing job searching. I'm grateful for that. Yes.
Well, Yanrong, you make it sound so easy. Just pass 1 and 2 and you'll get your job, no problem. Well, I mean, okay, let's be realistic. You had zero experience and background in finance, right?
Yes, thank you for that.
And you had, like we said earlier, you had philosophy, theory, Eastern Asia, Catholicism as your focus. How was it opening that book and basically starting to study for it? What were some, please share with us what resource you might have used. And I'm curious, as an educator, once being a lecturer, has it changed your thought process in any way? Because you did a complete 180.
Right. Well, that's now you're uncovering the dark period of my journey. I think when I registered for this exam, that was determination and a leap of faith. Okay, this is difficult and I'm going to do it. And I really want to learn. But when I opened the curriculum for level 1, even after several weeks, I still didn't know what I was reading. You can imagine that frustration. Level 1 to me was eye-opening. Not because it's difficult, but because it was trying to studying it was kind of awake another part of my brain.
Right.
As you said, I was in another world, kind of. So even, for instance, for some very basic math, very, very basic, like rise over wrong, I learned it in middle school, and I was actually good in physics and mathematics, but I hadn't used it for more than 10 or some years. So at the beginning, I didn't get the idea what what does that mean? Well, what's the implication of using rise over wrong when we go to percentage or this and that. So this is an example of how naive I was and how low my level was. And I have to tell you, CFA Institute suggests 300 hours for each level, right? This we all know. And I actually did 900 hours for level 1.
Wow.
900. That, it depends on how you look at it. Some people would say, you must be stupid. You need the 900. Yeah. Some people might say, wow, you're so determined and 900 hours are not easy. People can have their opinions. And then in my case, it's, I kind of did at least 3 rounds. First of all, I was not majored in economics or finance.
Right.
And the other part of my brain needs to, wake up.
Right.
So, and it takes time at the beginning for the first round. And then the second or third round is because of the pandemic hit. And so the examination, the exam center was shut down. So my exam was deferred twice, actually. But eventually I got quite good result. Quite good, very good. So I'm very thankful to myself who did the 900 hours. And another benefit is, I think the level 1 was so painful, But if you ask my study strategy is, I really need to understand what it is. What does it mean? All the words in books or practice questions or every number, they're just the numbers and words. But to me, I need to know what it is and why is it. Then when I registered for level 2 and even level 3, something amazingly surprising is I heard level 2 was the most difficult. But when I first followed the level 2 materials, I didn't find, even for the first time, I didn't find it difficult. I think that's because when I was at level 1, I spent maybe more than necessary effort in it. Then that prepared you to have a deeper understanding of the concept of each concept, each term, and those things, helped me, at least in my way. You also asked me whether my experience in being a lecturer helped in certain ways. I think yes, although we're studying across different fields or major disciplines, but some basic thing about learning is the same. For learning to me is you need to understand what it is. This sounds very, very basic, but it's actually very hard to do. We sometimes, human brains are deceitful. Sometimes you don't actually know, but you don't know you don't know.
Right.
And so as a teacher, I think my role as a teacher and an educator for a long time got me to understand this. Its significance of knowing what it is. I saw my students. I saw how they study, how they learn, and because I needed to help them to learn, to get the most efficient way for them to learn to make progress. Also, I learned from my students. Then I see when you first time come to a new content, come to new idea, come to new words, then you need to make connections with what you already know. But if what you already know is not solid enough, then all the building collapsed. So to me, the very, very basic thing is maybe the most important. This might sound different from some methodology that other people may advocate. But to me, this is true, and it works. In my case,
making connections with what you're reading and really building that foundation,
and really understand what it is. By questioning, even if there's some tricks that you can do, for instance, by using practice, exercise, drills, and also by questioning yourself.
It's funny you mentioned in your earlier comment, you're like, some people might think I'm stupid because I did the 900. Like, let me just preface to all our listeners, she took both her exam level 1 and exam level 2 one time.
Luckily.
Your hard work has clearly paid off. So, one of the common themes, we've been talking about is how in your past life, I guess we could say that now that you're in your new role, is that you spent majority of your life in your career in education. And you mentioned it earlier when you were kind of deciding what you wanted to do next, thanks to the pandemic, you had this kind of epiphany, right?
Right.
And you also already kind of mentioned having that dark period of your life when you were studying for level 1, but obviously there's plenty of trepidation and anxiety when you're kind of going into something you completely don't know. Yes. What are, what were some challenges, if you had any, and you're open to sharing, that have you faced, and what have you done or what are you doing to kind of help overcome them as you progress in your new career?
Right. I think, I think we all come across some difficulties, right, in life, in personal life, in professional life. Then when it comes to this career switch at when you're already mid-aged woman, coming from elsewhere, and luckily I do have a supportive family. Mm-hmm. My husband is very supportive. I think this is what we all need to everyone. And you're very right. Their anxieties and there's some days you feel just tired. You cannot pick up yourself, right? Mm-hmm. But then sometimes you even beat up yourself. Mm-hmm. That is in my case because of this huge shift. The very, very major thing is the lack of confidence. Mm-hmm. To me, I'm not a very confident person. Inherently, I'm not that confident. But in the academia, I was fine and I was doing very good. So then I built up this confidence. Mm-hmm. But when I started from zero in the finance, then confidence, slipped away. And I know I have great perseverance and curious mind. Those are good things, but I always also know I need to make a lot of effort just to be confident. This task is even heavier as a newbie, but you're already at 30s. People at my age in the industry, they're PM or some senior roles, directors. But I had to start from an internship in the field. Right. Luckily, I got one. This is the difficulty and how I overcome that. I hope that can be helpful to some of our audience as well. One thing is to use reason. I think use reason. It's difficult, especially when you're emotional. But you have to try to use it. Like in my case, I would not say just be positive. I would say be rational, but not be positive, because be positive. Come on, sometimes it's just so hard. Right. If my negative thoughts are valid, I know I'm a newbie. I know I'm not good at it yet. How can I be positive? I cannot deceive myself. Yeah, you're good. So in my case, the positive thinking may help, but not much, especially when my negative thoughts are valid. But the reason helps. In my case, it's when my dark period, let's call it, actually ended. Not when the result of L1 came out, but when it was the day, when the moment I got out of the exam center, when I finished the exam. Why? I had no idea how I did. I had no idea how, when I was done, I had no idea whether I passed or not. Mm-hmm. And no one knows, right? I didn't know. But I clearly remember that I told my husband that day, I said, I don't know whether I will pass or fail. I really don't know. But I know very sure that I feel I have grasped the knowledge, the concepts, and those calculations as required by the curriculum. Mm-hmm. I know for sure of this. I don't know how the result of the exam will go. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but I know for sure. I'm certain I have absorbed those, and now I know those concepts and calculations, and those are required by the curriculum. So this is it. Then there was a turning point. I think from that moment onwards, I was able to be myself again. So use reason. That is my way to validate where I am, what I have, and what I don't have, and what I need to do to get to get to where I want to be. Use reason. This is one tool. And secondly, that is not my tool, but I am grateful to some people who helped me. Mm-hmm. The second is a person that he's my manager when I was doing the internship at a hedge fund. Mm-hmm. This is a validation from the another person, not from yourself. Mm-hmm. Another person. That's a validation. I remember that when I finished, that's on my last day of the internship. Then we talked a lot because, my opening line since I started the internship or since I was looking for any internship or job, my opening line was always, "Hi, my name is Yanrong. I come from a different background, unrelated. I have no experience in the finance industry, and I'm willing to learn. I'm a faster learner, but I come from another background." I think even when I joined the society, CFA, San Francisco Society, that was also my kind of introduction. That was in my head, right? If you remember. And my manager on that day, he told me, you're already far ahead. Wow. Many graduates or junior roles, so on. So I know from him, it's not a fake or just kind of word, to say to. He's my manager. He doesn't have to be that nice, but I know for sure he's a very, very smart person. Mm-hmm. Also, and he has a lot of experience. Actually, we're at the same age. Can you imagine? And he's already very senior and very, very successful in the industry. Mm-hmm. And I know for sure that he said that because he already has seen how I work for more than half a year. He already saw my very, very first equity research article. Mm-hmm. And he also saw that I published already. Before the finish of the internship, I published an article on a stock. Wow. A research article. So, I have belief in him, even if I don't believe myself. Mm-hmm. I believe him, and he has belief in me. Mm-hmm. So, from him, I got what I can hear what I already have, and he helped me to shift the thinking into what I can offer to the industry, not just as a new learner. Mm-hmm. I think this is also a mind shift, and this validation helps me to overcome this lack of confidence thing. Mm-hmm. Well, sorry, I may have said too much, but if to sum up two things, my major difficulty is lack of confidence. Mm-hmm. Why? Because I come from a different background, right? And I start from zero. And the tools that helped me to overcome that is first to use reason, even when I'm when you're very emotional. But try to use reason. Talk to yourself. And the second, listen to people. Listen to the ones who care about you, who are genuine and true to you, and listen to your professional mentors. That helped. Those are the two things.
I think that's a great story and honestly great feedback because you're right. The first time I met you, that was the first thing you said. It's like, I'm
always.
I'm new. I'm an exam candidate student. And you're like, okay, but yeah. And after we talked those couple of times, you obviously are in a different level, and I'm glad that your mentor had told you that because, from how I met you a couple of months ago to how you are and where you are now, again, working in the industry it's a great story and maybe a great motivator for those people that are listening and considering taking their CFA or has always been fascinated and interested in finance are considering that move. So thank you for sharing your story.
Hope it helps.
So I know you have to get back to work, Yanrong. But before I let you go, I want to ask you, and I ask this to everybody, who inspires you and why?
Wow, if I really develop, that's a very, very long answer. Because, I claim myself a perpetual learner. So I keep learning, always keep hungry. So I often get inspired. So there at least might be several of my heroes. I could have a group of heroes that can form my Avengers.
I love that.
Right. I think we all have some, like, if we think about that, right?
Yeah.
There's some philosophers I really, really like Hannah Arendt or Michel Foucault, that I really love both. They have bold ideas and proactive questions. So I like those independent thinker, philosopher, and more real one is my grandma. And maybe everyone, likes the story of grandma, but we're short of time, so I'll try to be very short. She's an amazing woman. She's now around 90 years old.
Wow.
And she's actually a self-made woman.
Wow.
She was, because now she doesn't do it. She's a barber, and she had her own barber shop.
Really?
Even during the time of, there was a period of time, people work in community, in 60s. So, and in 70s, or the beginning of 80s, when China had this, open door policy, and then my grandmother already opened her first, barber shop. And of course, she didn't develop that into a big thing. Otherwise I would be rich today. She didn't, but the whole family relied on her. Even two of my aunts, they kind of inherited the shop, and they learned these skills from my grandma. So that provided their family. And my grandma is always providing for the whole big family, and also supporting my parents. And the one thing I have to mention, even we don't have enough time, maybe, my grandma never went to a school, and she was not lettered, not educated. But when I started my first year in primary school, and she started learning together with me. She got interested in Christianity, and then she was baptized. Then she wanted to be a good Christian, and she wanted to read Bible, but she cannot. She never received any. Not the characters.
Oh, okay.
She even didn't, maybe just know 1, 2, 3. The strokes, 1 stroke and 2 strokes. And when I was from year 1 to year 6, she was almost the same, at the same pace. When I was at the middle school or high school, somehow I remember clearly she can read the whole Bible in Chinese, of course. She can read the Bible, and she could, she already started her own session, to talk to other people, like a catechism. So, this is not much about religion, but about her determination, how she transformed herself from who never received a day in school, to a person who can read that a very thick, large chunk of book, and she keeps writing down her notes. And she's doing that when she's a barber. She has this kind of evening school at home. So, she's always my hero, and she loves me very much. I love her too. So I hope my hero, live long.
Well, that's remarkable. I mean, we forget how far women in general have come, right? Really.
Indeed.
And how many of our grandparents still had to kind of overcome. So thank you for sharing that story. That was really beautiful. And, so much respect for your grandma. And clearly we would be very proud of you and kind of what you've already accomplished and what you're planning to accomplish. So kudos to you, Yanrong.
Thank you. Very kind words.
Well, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I really love talking to you. And, I just want to wish you luck that you're going to be taking your level 3 exam, and I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Yes. Thank you. I will take your luck to the exam.
Right. Well, it was great seeing you.
Right. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this month's episode of the CFA Society San Francisco podcast. We hope you enjoyed the engaging discussion. Please stay tuned for more episodes of this podcast featured every 4th Tuesday in our weekly newsletters and through the CFA Society San Francisco podcast channel, available through most major podcast apps.